Hey everybody, it's Al Rains here. I just want to go over a couple things with you. We're going to talk about a few basic things, okay? First, you know about wedging. You've got to wedge the work. When you're going to pull the clay after you've wedged it, then you want to pull up and then push it down, then pull cone up again, and then you can start working with your shape. Pull those walls up as much as possible. Here I'm using a round rib. This rib is really helpful to give you a smooth bottom on bowls. And you always want to check the bottoms of your pieces. 3/8 of an inch is a good thickness. When I started with the clay, it was pretty soft. So stay with me, let's see what happens. When you've been working with clay for a while, you kind of get a sense for if it's becoming too squishy. Even as I'm working with it, you see the water kind of beating up on there. Some people think that's a really great idea, but perhaps it would have been if this clay hadn't been so soft. At about this point, typically I would let the clay rest. Now by rest, I mean you could just simply set it aside and come back to it an hour or so later, or you could use a torch. So instead of using a torch, I just kept working. Not a good idea, but I did start with a green rib that gives you medium weight and quite a bit of control, and it's just about to get me into trouble. And yeah, it did. Here I go. It's gonna crash just about now.
No!
I wish I could tell you I listen to my heart or my instincts every time, but I don't. So I find myself in the position of needing to rescue 8 pounds of speckled buff that I got saturated. I used a dry mixed masonry stain. You can still see there was just so much powder in it, and I couldn't get it to bind the way I wanted it to, so I started slam wedging. Now slam wedging is where you just basically work with the clay, cut it in half and slam it together and cut it in half, and you end up with multiple beautiful layers. Aha, so here we go. Did all that work just to get to a fresh start. I started with a little more than 8 pounds of clay when I first started the video, and at this point with the additional masonry stain, I'm right at 8 pounds again. So yeah, it was a lot of work, but I got the clay really malleable, but also firm enough to hold the walls and lay it down quite thinly so it'd make a beautiful platter. The feel of the clay is different as well. When you've worked with clay for a while, and I'm about 5 years in, maybe a little longer, you really get a sense for what is right for your throwing skills. As I already said, the clay was soft, and I figured though if I was just careful, I didn't rush myself, I would be fine. So I'm being careful at this point, and you can see how I'm poking those little spots. It's basically just the little bubbles that I couldn't get out when I was wedging. Those guys are still determined to hang with me. You can see at this point I'm using one rib at the bottom to flatten out that little shelf, and then I'm using a rib on the outside to pull those edges out and flatten as we go. Okay, so the clay's getting a little soft again. At this point, rather than pushing beyond what I know the clay can reasonably do, I'm using the paint stripper, and it does a great job of evaporating the excess water off. It just allows me to overall clean up the job as I go, and again, give me good results. The big lesson today is basically listen to yourself, listen to your intuition. Know when it's time to say, that is fantastic, I'm not doing anymore.